Pronti? Are we all ready? Che possiamo anche... Perfetto. So, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us in the conference Trace of Peace Between History, Memory and Communication. A conference that was organized thanks to the collaboration among the Libera Università di Lingua e Comunicazione Ulm and Politecnico di Milano, with the precious support of the International Network of Museums for Peace, the Red Internacional de Universidades Lectoras, and the the Italian Network of Universities for Peace. We are organizing this conference in a very special occasion. It is the anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly on 10th December 1948. I am Elena Montanari. I am lecturer in Interior and Exhibition Design at the Mantova campus of Politecnico di Milano, and today I will accompany you through this first part of the program that we have prepared together with Ulm University, a program that will continue tomorrow in Milan. We hope these 1.5 days will be intensive and operative, and we hope they will produce some food for thoughts and foster the debate about the efforts that are being carried out by many and different cultural organizations and institutions that all over the world and in Italy are promoting a culture of peace in the contemporary scenario. Now let's officially kick off the event with a welcome message by Kazuyo Yamane, who is Associate Professor in Peace Studies at Ritsumeikan University and Senior Advisor of the International Network of Museums for Peace. So thank you, Professor Yamane.
My name is Kazuyo Yamane. I'm an expert advisor to the Kyoto Museum for World Peace, Ritsumeikan University in Kyoto. I'm also a senior advisor to the INNP, International Network of Museums for Peace. Thank you so much for inviting me to this international conference. It's a great pleasure to see the 3 speakers again today. Ms. Lucetta Sanguinetti of Peace Lab Museum in Collegno, Ms. Piera Caramelino of Gola Museum Project, and Mr. Vittorio Pallotti of International Peace Foster Documentation Center in Bologna again. I'm also familiar with the International Museum of Red Cross, which I introduced in a book called Museums for Peace Worldwide, which was published last year. This book is a guidebook of 303 museums for peace in the world, including 84 museums for peace in Japan. The International Network of Peace Museums was founded in 1992 when the International Conference of Peace Museums was held at the University of Bradford in England. I attended it as a representative of a peace museum called Grassroots House, and I have been promoting education for peace and human rights through peace museums since then. Thanks to the international network, it is possible to exchange ideas and exhibits with other people, and it has been great to attend the International Conference of Peace Museums from 1992 to 2020, last year. This is how I got acquainted with Lucetta, Piera, and Vittorio. Lucetta visited Japan to research peace museums in Japan before. I learned much from the Peace Lab Museum because it is a key generator of peace ideas and policies. Piera also visited Japan to attend the international conference, and I was lucky to be able to attend an event in which Italian children learned what happened to children in Gorla. As for International Peace Poster Documentation Center in Bologna, I sent Japanese posters with English translation before. The collection of posters is really impressive, and I think that they can be a good traveling exhibit in the future. The name of International Network of Peace Museums was changed to the International Network of Museums for Peace, INNP, in 2005, when the 5th International Conference was held in Guernica Peace Museum. This change was intended to broaden the network and attract a larger and broader range of members, such as history museums, art museums, etc. Museums for Peace have been playing important roles to promote education for peace and human rights, not only at school, but also communities. For example, many people who went through World War II are getting older and older. Therefore, it is important to share memories with younger generations. Such activities have been done at various museums for peace in the world. COVID-19 prevents people from getting together and visit museums for peace, and many museums for peace suffer from financial problems because of decrease in visitors. However, we have been making exhibitions online and having webinars, etc. There is the INNP website, which is full of information on exhibitions, events such as webinars, etc. And I hope that you will open the website to learn various activities in the world. I also hope that this conference in Italy will be successful and fruitful to promote a culture of peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a silent but really forceful applause for you. Thank you very much, Dr. Yamane, for this warm, welcoming message. Now, I will introduce you Federico Bucci, who is professor in History of Architecture at Politecnico di Milano, where he is also vice rector of the Mantova campus, chairholder of the UNESCO Chair in Preservation and Planning in World Heritage Cities, and rector's delegate for the Network of Italian Universities for Peace.
Vabbè, dai, fa niente, così va benissimo. Mettiti lontano così mi tolgo la mascherina. Good afternoon. We are very glad to house this important event at the Mantova campus of Politecnico di Milano. I would like to thank all the people who have accepted our invitation and are taking part in the conference, starting from Kazuo Yamane. Thank you very much for your inspiring message, and to the International Network of Museums for Peace for the support in the organization of the conference. I also want to thank the Rede Internacional de Universidades Lectoras and the Italian Network for University of Peace, and in particular to its coordinator, Enza Pellecchia. A special thank also goes to Giovanna Rocca, Massimo De Giuseppe, and the Libera Università di Lingua e Comunicazione, ULM, di Milano, for the very fruitful cooperation that led to the realization of this event. We hope this conference will bring a contribution to promote new collaboration, to start new dialogues, and to take further actions that may enhance the construction of a culture of peace. We are here in particular to reflect on the role of history, memory, and communication, and more precisely on the task of those institutions that have a responsibility to conserve, to promote, and to teach them. There is a monument in front of UNESCO headquarters in Paris. A stone stele was surfaced, is carved with the first sentence of the preamble 1945 UNESCO Constitution, translated into 9 languages. These words declare that since wars begin in the minds of men, it is in the minds of men that defense of peace must be constructed. This iconic sentence recalls us that wars are caused by ideas, and that the most crucial action we can take to prevent them is education. Among the many agents and agencies that promote education, universities, museums, libraries, cultural associations, and networks play a crucial role. Our institutions have the possibility and the responsibility to foster scientific programs and policies as platforms for a democratic and sustainable development, to promote cultural heritage and the equal dignity of all cultures, and to provide innovative strategies and tools to strengthen critical thinking and awareness, and to enhance the free flow of ideas and the wider access to knowledge that are key conditions to help people live as global citizens, free of hate and intolerance. Each institution has its own instruments to carry out these tasks and to promote education, dialogue, and mutual understanding. Within our School of Architecture, we firmly believe that also the design, the construction of built spaces can have a strategic role in the peace-building process. The architectural project can contribute to promote a culture of peace in different ways. Sometimes it can enlighten and enhance it through the conveyance of specific forms and messages, as Le Corbusier did through the symbolic structure and of the open hand. These figures appear frequently in Le Corbusier's paintings, sculptures, and in other architectural proposals. But the most famous manifestation of this cultural project is in the Capitol complex in Chandigarh. Here, the imposing open hand monument is used as the emblem of the government of Chandigarh, symbolizing peace, prosperity, reconciliation, and the unity of mankind. The hand is open to receive and to take, as Le Corbusier explained in the poem of the right angle, where the offering section is dedicated to this figure, with its interior lines and contour that is open since all is present, available, seizable, but open also in order that each comes there to take. But there are also other ways for architecture to participate in the construction of the trials of peace. After the Second World War, the architectural culture has started to profoundly engage with this task through the commitment in healing the scars on the physical and social texture of the cities, in providing a house for all, and in constructing a safer and more sustainable environment. But architecture can also play an active part in peace-building processes by developing strategic relationships with history, memory and communication. Indeed, it can shape the spaces we inhabit as individuals and as part of a community. It can bring to the attention silent or hidden traces and values, and it can modify the way people interact with a place, learn its history, and embed it into their memories. I am very glad to welcome here architect and professor Philip Rost, who kindly accepted our invitation to share his experience that is particularly relevant in this field and will offer us an understanding overview on the potential of architecture to contribute to the construction of a culture of peace. Thank you, Philippe, and thank you all who have joined us. We follow the event.
Thank you, Federico.
So thank you very much, Professor Bucci, for this very passionate insight. And now we will, as you anticipated, we will leave the floor to Philippe Rost, to architect Philippe Rost, but also urban planner, professor at the École Nationale Supérieure d'Architecture de Paris-Belleville, who founded his Agence d'Architecture Philippe Rost in Paris in 1993. And ever since, he has been developing groundbreaking architectural and landscape projects that have been working in different fields, but with a particular interest addressed to those works that explore innovative interplays among memory, context, and creativity. As we will see, for example, in the very well-known Ring of Remembrance, he realized within the Mémorial International de Notre-Dame de Loret, a World War I memorial in Ablain-Saint-Nazaire. This relationship among memory, context, and creativity plays a fundamental role in his research, and his personal interpretation of this theme will offer us today an outstanding lesson about the possibility of architecture to operate as an active instrument that is capable to produce changes in the life of the places and of the people, and to contribute to foster new narrations for heritage and for history. So thank you very much, architect. I will leave you the floor.
Thank you very much. I try to...
Thank you, Elena. Thank you, Philippe.
Hi. Thank you. Did you see my screen?
Yes.
With the first, with the trails of peace, you see that or not?
Yes, you can just put it full screen.
It's good for you?
Perfect, perfect.
Okay.
Merci.
Very good.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. First off, I would like to thank the organizers for their invitation to this international conference taking place on December 9th and 10th, the anniversary of the Declaration of Human Rights. And particularly, I want to thank the Politecnico of Milan, represented by Federico Bucci, my friend, the Italian Network of University for Peace, and the International Network of Museum for Peace. Next, as an architect, I'm greatly interested in this topic of trails of peace between history, memory, and communication, which has brought us together over this two-day event. Memory occupies a fundamental role in my work and nurtures my creation. On this occasion, I would like to talk about how and in what way architecture can help promote peace, how it can occupy a dimension that is both memorial and prospective. In short, how it can take on a symbolic role. Lastly, as part of my keynote speech, which is also where I am here today with you, I will present you two of my projects, one under construction at the former deportation train station in Bologna outside of Paris, the other one completed for the International Memorial of Notre-Dame de Loret in northern France, called the Ring of Remembrance. My talk today could be entitled From War to Peace, with the subtitle War and its Remnants, Peace and its Intentions. Both places and landscapes destroyed by war carry remnants of the disaster, as well as preserve the memory of events for many years after. In addition to literature and pictorial arts, photography, cinema and theater, along with social media today, architecture has and has always had an important role in the celebration of peace as well as the commemoration of war. Architecture is often used to commemorate a battle, lives lost, tragedy. It can also take the form of a monument meant to remember as well as remind everyone of the importance of peace. How can we preserve peace if we forget the disastrous effects of war? This is why human memory is so important, both materially and immaterially. What remains of this memory when the people who have lived through these tragic events are no longer with us? What remains of this memory in sites and landscapes when nature has reclaimed its surroundings? What remains of this memory in buildings when life has returned? What remains of this memory after reconstruction? When sites, landscapes, buildings containing remnants of battles and destruction have disappeared or lost their legibility, memory needs a visual support, either material or immaterial, through a landscape, building, or a text, or image, or photograph. The monument, meant to commemorate, remains a symbolic and privileged tool, an architectural or artistic monument, according to the scenario. Few examples. First, a Greek stele found in Athens, the first one known to contain the names of approximately 170 soldiers killed around 460 before Christus in the war in Cyprus, Phoenicia. Next, a natural site in Burgundy in France, called Alesia, where the siege and the battle took place between Julius Caesar and Vercingetorix, leader of the Gallic troops. The story goes that during the Gallic Wars, Julius Caesar allowed for his image to be engraved like this, or to be painted like this. But today, the only remnants that remains are those interpretable by archaeologists and the statue of the Gallic chieftain erected by Napoleon III. Here are remains of Hadrian's Wall, separating Rome-conquered England from Scotland, which remained independent. A wall that snaked along dozens of kilometers from the North Sea to the Irish Sea. But today there is no more conflicts, it's just a remnants. Here are vestiges of a feudal mound-like, like the one found in Milan, appearing on the Bayeux tapestry, a mound that appears to be a part of Earth's topography. You can see there, and you can see that. It's just a remnants. There is also the Battle of Crécy, a famous battle between French and English during the medieval era, whose landscape, except for perhaps the ground itself, no longer contains any traces of this event. We will continue the exercise for some time, which involves comparing the topographical material trace with the story and image. With aviation, destruction will become even more widespread and greater than anything known previously, like Guernica in the Basque Country during the Spanish Civil War, which Picasso depicted in a work denouncing the city's bombing, one of his many world-famous works. Now, let's take a look at the two projects that I already mentioned regarding sites of war and tragedy, where the question of memory is and remains raised in addition to the absurdity of war and the tragedies that it causes, as well as in terms of something like the Holocaust, never letting anything of this nature even happen again. In short, these projects are unmistakably an invitation for emotion and reflection for both peace and fraternity. The first one under construction now is on Bobigny. In the location of the former deportation train station in Bobigny, outside of Paris, in the immediate vicinity of the Notre camp in Drancy. Today, you can see on the screen, today the decommissioned train station remains a symbolic site of deportation during World War II, the point of departure for the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp between July 1943 and August 1944, until the end of war, in fact. A site with a particular future. The train station would continue to handle cargo traffic after the war, while the site was occupied by a scrapped merchant, then abandoned, vegetation rapidly reclaiming its surroundings. Like you can have a look on the situation during the Second World War, just two buildings, and here it's the situation after the World War. Nobody no more it was a place of a tragedy. It's a place for a scrap merchant. And after that, during the 21st century, it became vegetation rapidly reclaiming its surroundings. No photo bears witness to the 21 or so convoys that left from this train station. Only two buildings, you can see here, this one and this one, only two buildings, the train station, and the hall remain mostly intact, as do the train's tracks. Between city and memory and development, brainstorming and intention has to be combined to create a memorial with a commemorative and symbolic function, a historical site with an education role, a place for research and engagement with a civic and instructional stance, as well as a pleasant urban area with a social and environmental outlook, and lastly, a place for sharing and creating with a social and cultural role. You can have here a look on the future landscape and here a view on the actual landscape with the hall and the view of the future later building for the people arriving on site. The second project, completed and inaugurated in 2014 by the President of the French Republic on the 100th anniversary of World War I, is the Notre Loret International Memorial, which transcends nationalities to take another dimensions by uniting British, French, and German allies and enemies of Europe through the affirmation of a European citizenship beyond the grave, as well as a global citizenship above all else for the men who came to fight from 5 different continents. Winner of an international architectural conception, an exceptional commission in the life of an architect, create a monument to peace in memory of lives lost. The question asked by the Hauts-de-France Regional Contracting Authority, how to display on the Notre-Dame de Loret Hill, next to the largest necropolis in France, the names of the 600,000 soldiers, British, German, French, and a lot of others, who lost their lives during the World War I in the Nord and Pas-de-Calais departments in the strict alphabetical order from A to Z, without distinction in regards to their nationality, religion, or rank. The context, war. The war geography is the basis for history. Topography determined the battle on the Notre-Dame de Loret Hill. The nearby coal mines being at stake. The tragic battle for the conquest of this area took the lives of 100,000 men. At the end of the war, the largest military necropolis in France was erected on the hill with a 50-meter high lantern tower. What are the remnants? Here you are a first remnants. Next to this necropolis, the sole remaining traces from the war are mortar craters like this, trenches, and graffiti, as well as the objects the heirs have rejected, like military identity tags or a notebook with a bullet hole. Today, a century after the war, nature has reclaimed its surroundings. There is just topographical place and in back, the largest French necropolis. The subject was to create a monument in a natural and memory-rich landscape. It was necessary, in my point of view, to create an emotional shock, to find greater tranquility. If the site of the Notre-Dame de Loret hill was exposed in terms of monument's shape, the rest was completely left up to the architects. Here, the context and the memory were the basis for me for the creation. Architecture has this ability to create emotion without an educational format. The sketchbook, the first concept. First off, I wanted to combine architecture with nature, so they could both be used in the service of memory. Next, to give shape to fraternity, I chose the form of a ring inside of which the visitor can, with their own eyes, see all the 600,000 names. Lastly, to symbolize peace.
Io adesso sto vedendo.
Lastly,
Però io non vedo voi.
lastly, to symbolize peace, I choose horizontality while its unstable positions symbolizes its fragility. That is how the ellipsis placed on the horizon line came into being. This project wouldn't have been possible without 21st century technology. It was necessary to innovate, to create this work of art. Like you can see on the notebook and on the other page. Ultra high performing fiber cement was used to create the prefabricated elements. It was necessary also to innovate, to transmit because we used tinted stainless steel panels where engraved the 600,000 names with a laser. Between the city of the living and the city of the dead, as you can see on the map on the ground there, the monument looks like a hyphen within an acropolis overlooking the plain, as said Federico Bucci, speaking about an acropolis. When visitors discover the memorial perched on the Notre-Dame de Loret hill, inscribed in the horizon line of the artwork plane, they are overcome by a strong oceanic feelings, defined by Romain Rolland in an exchange with Sigmund Freud as a psychological and or spiritual notion, which is related to the feeling or desire to fear one with the universe, with what is greater than oneself, transcending any kind of religious belief. Silent architecture. I want that architecture will be silent. Besides a ribbon of gray concrete, the color of war. From the monumental to the intimate, I want the people can be in a particular moment inside. And inside, 500 golden sheets unfold like pages in a book. Here, visitors discover names coming from 5 continents. The first one was a name coming from Nepal, Tet from Asiatic people, and it's a kind of symbol for this World War I. Inside, here visitors discover, as I said, names coming from 5 continents. Here visitors can feel, by walking above the void, the fragility of peace when you walk on this part. The fragility of peace and the right in flight, the ring in flight. The sub-memorial is a subject to the test of time, both day and night, as you can see there. Both night, here you can see the lantern tower, and you can see the 500 panels illuminated with the names. It was one condition of the competition. It was a place completely open, free, night and day, and you can read the names in the same facility, kind. During the night and the day, and also according to the seasons. You can see there the season in summer, in autumn, winter, and spring. Each season change the way to look after this ring of memory. If memory and context are the basis for creation. There is no peace without me remembrance. That's why I think and in what I create. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, architect. I applaud, but everybody is applauding now. But if we could be on presence, thank you. This was very inspiring. I'm sure that this thought-provoking contribution has been inspiring for many. It will contribute to raise awareness about the cultural, the social role of architecture, the potentialities that architecture has. Now, let's prosecute with the program, and let's start the roundtable. So I welcome all the panelists, and I thank them very much because they are the ones that made this roundtable possible. We virtually gathered around this roundtable the representatives of 7 Italian museums and organizations that are significantly contributing to the peace building process in our country. So I would like to thank all the panelists who invited who accepted our invitations, and that will allow us today to build an overview of all the efforts, of all the actions that Italian museums and organizations are taking in this field. Now, the roundtable will start with a synthetic presentation of each of the institutions that are present and that you can see listed in the image. Then we will prosecute with a dialogue, with a debate. And I also invite the public, the people that are following us from home, both from Zoom and from the YouTube channel, to participate, to share their comments, to share their thoughts, or to ask questions to our panelists. And I ask you, please, if you have a question, please write it in the comment section, and we will go through the questions after the presentations. So let's start our journey. We will start our journey through this Italian museums scenario that we would like to build with the Museo Laboratorio di Pace, based in Collegno, in the outskirts of Turin, which is a peace laboratory museum that is going through major renovations, a major renovation and change. The project of this museum should have been presented by its initiator and president, Lucetta Sanguinetti, but Professor Sanguinetti could not be here today. We just knew that she is traveling in this moment, and I will explain you why in a second. But she has sent us a short contribution, which I will read for you. And I beg your pardon already, because of course I'm sure I will not be able to be as precise and as eloquent as Professor Sanguinetti would be, but I will try my best. So, this is Lucetta Sanguinetti. I will speak as if I was her. Today I cannot be with you because I'm traveling. I'm traveling for a mission for our new Peace Lab Museum. In fact, I'm flying to the south coast of Sicily to bring to Collegno a migrant boat, abandoned by illegal immigrants and pulled out of the water. Once arrived in Collegno, the boat is to become the door of the museum, the first of the great chapters that we want to tackle in the new museum arrangement. The migrant chapter. So there will be photographs, artifacts, solidarity interventions, law proposals, involvement in works of schools, universities, associations, and citizens to be developed in the laboratories. And we will start from here. This work, this update, has already been preceded by a small Christmas provocation of the last year. But what was the first version of a small museum that we lived and experienced in the 10 years of life of this dream, still in the process of being realized? So these are a few images that show the work of this amazing museum lab. While the history of active nonviolence resounds today with the dramatic dream of Martin Luther King, I have a dream. Now the environment has been claimed by the University Department of Primary Education, and this move allows us to plan a much bigger one. And this is a preliminary scheme of intersections, of engagement, of activities that will intertwine the major themes that the new museum will deal about, and that they will gradually develop. And Lucetta leaves us with a question: can a new peace city planning be born through a peace museum strategy? So I think this is a very, very challenging questions that we should keep in mind while prosecuting our debate. Now, I thank Professor Sanguinetti for her virtual intervention and for her contribution. Of course, there will be possibilities to go more into depth in the activities of this outstanding museum by following it through the website and social media. And now we should prosecute our journey throughout the Italian peace museums by moving to another city. We're moving to Bologna. We're moving to the Centro di Documentazione del Manifesto Pacifista Internazionale, this is to say the International Peace Poster Documentation Center, whose work will be presented by its founder, Vittorio Pallotti. Professor Pallotti, are you there? Professor, you have to activate the microphone. Attiva audio, left corner. No, in basso a sinistra, attiva audio. That's great.
Right.
Great. Yes, yes.
Thank you very much. And I'm very happy to see and hear Cadullo and other Italian friends, Lucetta and Angela and Piera. Thank you. So I have to begin my my talk. I titled my talk 40 years of peace posters, 1981-2021, one collection and many experiences. The beginnings 1980-87. The original core of the collection dates back to the late 70s, when Western Europe was bracing itself to receive cruise and Pershing II missiles. In March 1985, the Hercules room of Palazzo da Cursia, the seat of the Bologna Town Hall, opened the first Bologna exhibition of posters against war and the arms race for education in peace and non-violence, organized by 4 pacifist groups from Bologna. Those posters were a vivid and powerful expression of the popular will to oppose nuclear and other forms of rearmament. Sooner or later, those posters would serve to A. Remind us of an important part of our history. B. Teach us that we would all have a great deal to learn from those events. Firstly, they show the importance and strength of those mass mobilizations movements, but also of their limitations. Those posters are a testimony to a profusion of initiatives organized at the local level that was hard to imagine. Many established groups and associations started asking us to lend them the posters for local exhibitions. A major contribution to the growth of the collection came from the group of conscientious objectors within the municipality of Trento's civilian service, which in autumn 1984 organized Italy's first ever peace poster exhibition. One of these posters announced that in London that same year, presumably in the spring, the political committee of the London region had organized the first international peace poster exhibition. This meant that our Bologna exhibition was just the second in Italy and probably the third worldwide. In 1987, the time had come to publish the first comprehensive catalogue of the exhibition, with contributions from scholars and university academics, including Omar Calabrese and Letizia Grassi, and an interview with Umberto Eco. Subsequent developments from 1988 to 2011. From 1988 on, the collection's posters were displayed at over 230 exhibitions in various parts of Italy and Europe. The venues, too, were highly diverse. Exhibits were even staged at one of the venues of the Viareggio Carnival Foundation in 2002, and at the World Fireworks Championships in Valmontone, Rome, in 2006. Very strange venues, these. From the mid-90s, the CDMPI, International Center of Specialist Posters, the CDMPI began to organize a series of theme-based traveling exhibitions based on selected posters from its collection. Between the late 90s and the early 2000s, the CDMPI broke new ground. In 1999, it organized the biggest poster exhibition in its history in collaboration with the Catania-based Stop the War Association. 450 posters were divided into 7 theme-based exhibitions held in 7 municipal districts in the province of Catania. The following year, in 2000, the city of Bologna was nominated one of the 9 European cities of culture, with communication as its theme. The CDMPI presented the event's organizing committee with a plan to hold a large-scale traveling exhibition of 100 posters entitled 50 Years of Peace on the Walls of Europe, 1950-2000, which, together with the accompanying catalogue, told the story of European peace movements in the previous 50 years. The last decade, 2011-2020. This decade has also seen the CDMPI continuing its publishing activities with the publication of various articles And it says in the book, these posters tell a story of the many ways to get rid of war. Of this book, it is also an edition in English language. In 2017, it also started collaborating with two monthly periodicals, Casalecchio News of the municipality of Casalecchio di Reno and Che Succede, in English, What Happens, of the Percorsi di Pace Association. The collaboration involves the monthly publication of a poster from La Filanda with the related commentary. In addition to its work in the publishing domain, over the last decade, the CDMPI has actively collaborated in the following 4 initiatives. First, the publication of the book Introducing Peace Museums by Joyce Upsell. Casa per la Pace La Filanda is featured among the world's 6 most important museums examined in this book and is described alongside the Nobel Peace Center in Oslo. 2. Conservation and promotion of La Filanda's archive of paper documents. On 6 May 2015, the archive received recognition from the Italian Ministry of Cultural Heritage and Activities and Tourism, which deemed it, along with its complementary poster collection, to be of particularly significant historical interest. 3. Initial collaboration with Istituto Gramsci in Bologna, involving the scanning and uploading on the web of a first group of around 1,000 posters. From 2013 on, more posters have been scanned, over 3,000, in collaboration with Fausto Giorgi from Percorsi di Pace Association. 4. Updating of the catalog to include all the posters in the collection, which has grown from 5,406 posters held in December 18 to over 6,000 today. A collection described by the Oxford International Encyclopedia of Peace in 2010 as the biggest collection of peace posters in the world. Now, some examples of the use of posters in education. The poster represents a message that speaks of a given historical event, personality, or situation. To facilitate the reading, understanding, and decodifying of this message, educational materials have been prepared for students from different age groups, as well as fact sheets for the students themselves and all teachers and adult users. Thanks to experience and initiative of Fiorella Manzini, is my wife, a former middle school and art teacher, the posters have been used in schools since the 80s for a range of educational, including educational activities, including mounting theme-based exhibitions, collaborating in the preparation of new exhibitions, using the posters to explore various topics in greater depth across a range of subject areas such as history, graphic art, economics, law, and so on. Internships and traineeship at Casa per la Pace La Filanda. Collaboration with Marco Lega, a graphic design teacher at the Venturi Art High School in Modena, leading to the design of the CDMPI logo chosen through a student's competition. And then, if possible, I ask Elena to show our logo. Thank you. In conclusion, the 300 exhibitions held in Italy and internationally in the last 35 years have seen a public display of several thousand posters and have been visited by tens of thousands of people of all ages. This has undoubtedly had an impact on the development and the growth of the culture of peace and nonviolence among a large number of young and not so young people. To close my talk, I want to report this motto or phrase. The posters, as usual, say it all. This is a phrase of Robert Fisk, a journalist of The Independent, on his article of 11 June 2012. This is conclusion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you. I think there was some problem in the connection, but maybe in the registration, we will try to solve them. Thank you very much for informing us about.
I can show our logo. You see?
Yes.
This is a paper, no? That is transforming in a peace dove. You see?
That's great. Yes, we see. Thank you. That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much, and for your work and for your commitment. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, let's move on in our journey. And we are now moving to Milan. We are very, very willing to know more about the project for the Milan Peace Museum that is being forcefully and passionately being promoted by Piera and Giancarlo Caramellino and the Association of the Little Marquis of Gorla. So Professor Piera and Giancarlo Caramellino, you are there. I see you. I will leave you the floor.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you very much.
Piera.
Yes, okay. Okay, greetings to everybody. We are so happy to see so many good friends gathered here, particularly Kazuyo Yamane, who first met in London more than 30 years ago, and then in Kyoto when we visited in 1998 the International Conference of Peace Museums. And of course, it is an honor for us to take part in this conference. And we would like to congratulate Professor Massimo De Giuseppe for focusing a theme vital for the surviving of human civilization. And we are particularly grateful for involving Italian universities on such a large scale. In fact, it is to young students we would like to address the presentation of a museum for peace. Mind you, for peace, not of peace. Hoping the new students would like to go deeper and study post-war Milanese history, because in our opinion, this history is running the risk to be confined partly to a legend, because we found so many mistakes in the history we lived together, you know. A few words about our project. When my husband and I visited Japanese museums for peace, from Osaka to Okinawa, which are as beautiful as crystal cathedrals in the desert, we realized that nothing like that could yet be found in Italy. Probably because something was missing in the sensibility of Italian historians and artists. And architectures, maybe. In a way, then, we felt guilty for not having contributed to give evidence to the facts we suffered. I personally survived to the bombing of the schools of Prerequisite and Gorla on the 20th of October 1944, where 200 children died. And my husband survived at the massacre of Piazza Fontana, where the tension strategy of terrorism started in 1969. Back from Japan, after many years during which we had tried to forget rather than recollect what we had suffered, we went back as soon as we can to Gorla, where, quite by chance, we found a few survivors of the bombing and decided to start a museum in a little deconsecrated church. Here, we had the possibility to invite a larger number of part of that population that were new settlers in the area. And I did not know anything about the facts. The first president of our association was Don Walter Filippi, who had survived under the ruins of the school and had seen his schoolmates lying under the debris. Being left the only child in that area, he suffered the bad glances of the parents of his schoolmates, as if he were responsible for their death. And when he was 33 years old, decided to become a Salesian priest and dedicated all his life to educate to peace. Several teachers became involved in our actions to commemorate the anniversaries of bombings, and prizes were given to students who distinguished themselves in history research or problem solving. The Milanese County Council contributed with books to our initiatives. We were not a little disappointed by people that repeated to us, "Why a museum for peace? Everybody wants peace. What for? What would you put in a museum for peace?" That was a strange question for us, because it was difficult to explain. We were talking about something absolutely new, but that it is extremely important to fill the gap of ignorance in our society. Some pacifist association helped us, as the president of the Italian White Rose, Fabio Caneri, and our grandchildren produced a video that we sent to the international conference held last September in Japan. We have been soliciting public institutions in order to feel the urgency to create a museum with a new approach, completely new, not a dusty show of war findings or weapons, but a place where to study the strategies who were used to make peace in the past and can be used in the future. It's true that everybody wants peace, but what are the prerequisites for a culture of peace? As Machiavelli invented the science of politics, it's now high time to invent the science of peace. Today, conflict resolutions need professional men or women trained in international controversies where decisions are taken to save human lives. To train these experts in peace education, in our opinion, it is now one of the new roles of universities. About Human Day, tomorrow will be the Human Rights Day. So about human rights, let's quote Cesare Beccaria, that everybody knows, about death penalty. Oh, by the way, he was Alessandro Manzoni's grandfather, and I want to quote just to demonstrate that good ideas give good fruits in the end. So, no time to lose. We believe Milan can still have a role to enhance peace education in the world and in every kind of school. It's a legacy our association makes to university students in order that they can become more aware of the urgency of a new interdisciplinary approach in any subject, from science to humanities. Starting from Beccaria's idea that death is neither useful nor necessary, we think better achievements can be reached in the future. I'll try to cut it short because I heard so very good interviews before mine about architecture. And I will be pleased to answer any questions during the debate. And I thank you for attention and make my best wishes to all young students.
Thank you so much. There's plenty of students. We are all students. We are always students. So there's always time and room for learning. Thank you very much. You touched upon very, very important concepts. Thank you for sharing your experience and your thought and your works. Thank you. So let's prosecute our journey. And we're moving now a little bit closer to Mantova, where I am. We will arrive at the Museo Internazionale di Croce Rossa, the International Museum of Red Cross, housed in Castiglione delle Stiviere. It is here to present the experience of this institution, Michele Romeo Jasinski, who is Executive Manager of the International Humanitarian Law Area and National Representative for the Cultural Heritage Preservation within the Italian Red Cross Society. So, Dr. Jasinski, are you there? Yes, I see you. Ready?
Yes, thank you for introduction and thank you, Professor Bucci, for the invitation. I would like to share my screen. So I want to show you a little presentation of our museum. So, do you see my screen? So perfect, I think so. Okay. Red Cross in Castiglione Stiviere is part of the Italian Red Cross Society activity. So we will start from the museum to share the idea of Red Cross about peace and our activity. What museum in this place? So first of all, our museum was inaugurated in 1959, so 100 after the Solferino battle that is in the it is very important because in this battle, the idea of Red Cross by Harry, so it's the place where our idea of activity of Red Cross start. In 1959, the museum was done by the Italian president and the French president, because during the Solferino battle on the field, French and Austrian troops that fight again themselves. So from the battle, as I said, we found the idea. Harry Dunant was a Swiss businessman that during one of his travels was very cross, was near the battle, and can see the experience of the war and the experience of a battle. And from this, he started to create in the international world, because the idea was born in Italy, it was comes from Switzerland, but he started to approach people from different kind of states like French, German, and so on, to share his idea and to create something that was across the world, so not centered only in Italy, centered in Europe, but centered all around the world. In this, so people that have people that follow his first idea, the idea of humanity. So to be very, very near the people that need assistance. From this moment, 1859, the idea of Red Cross was developed in 7 fundamental principles. First of all is humanity. And this is important for the museum too. Is an historical experience, so you can see how Red Cross was born. You can feel the Battle of Solferino and why it inspired the idea of Harry Dunant, but in a new way of communication, we start people feel the idea of the 7 principles. The first one, humanity, starts with the society was born on a battlefield. So we try to focus on our origin on the war, but end with the promotion of peace. So we start from the war, but we want to arrive at peace, to share this idea of peace. And this is the idea of the museum. The museum wants to be a cultural center where we can disseminate it in education about our 7 principles, international humanitarian law, that is the law that try to save people during a battle and to create something very close to peace, conflict, or to evade a conflict, for example. Very close to the museum have Red Cross Memorial of Solferino. It is very important because a monument that explains what to people what happened in the 24th of June 1859 during the battle, as I said, between the French troop and the Austrian troop. It was erected in 1859 by Alfredo Lambertucci, and this monument want to remember the people, the battle, but of our remember is not the battle, but what happened during the battle. So the burning of the idea by Harry Dunant to save people, to give his hide to all of these people without division, inclusive idea to support and to help all people from different sides, Austrian and French in this case. From the 1959 to today, any year on 24th of June, people from all over the world, you know that the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement, 192 national societies. So we have 192 countries trust in the idea of the Red Cross. And every year during in the 24th of June, we have the possibility to find a place in Solferino where all these can arrive and can do a commemorative torchlight procession from Solferino to Castiglione. And this torchlight procession remember the most Harry and the women of Solferino, so normal people, volunteers, decide to go in the back to try to save people, to shark for people that need medical assistance. And this is the beginning of what is now our society. You can find all of this history in our museum. It's called The Origins of the Idea, a place where you can find picture, you can read text about why the idea of Red Cross was developed after the Solferino battle by Harry Dunant. This is one of our exhibitions. Other three are about the first equipment uniform of the First World War, the Red Cross Volunteer Nursing Corps that is part now Italian Red Cross Society. So it's a very important part because we support our armed forces during kind of healthcare activity and some kind of old means of export. These are the four permanent we have in our museum. But as I said, just one point of our activity about Red Cross. From 1859, and so we develop a kind of access during the war, but to support people who need assistance. For example, one of these was done by the Red Cross in 1951 to 1955 in Korea. This is very important because it was done during a modern conflict, but the idea was to be there to support and to assist people from the population during a conflict. So the idea was to give them what they need during, in this kind, the North versus South Korean War in this year. Another important activity of the Red Cross is very close to us. It was done in the last 3 years in the Lebanon area. And this is very connected to peace because during this activity, we decided to teach international humanitarian law to all the countries that was part of the UNIFIL mission on Lebanon, that you know is very old activity by United Nations to create peace in this area between Lebanon and Israel countries. So going there, we have the possibility to share with them the rules of international humanitarian law, and we try to create a link between all over these military troops from different countries to develop this idea of collaboration to create the basis of a new kind of peace. I want to close my presentation with one part that is very, very important in the museum, in our museum in Castiglione delle Stiviere. You can find a text where we can summary all the idea of Henri Dunant, that is the word tutti fratelli, all brothers. This is something that normally is not traduced by a Red Cross in any language. Tutti fratelli is one of the words that are becoming very universal in the Red Cross world. It's how we want to create and to share our idea of peace. We have the possibility to speak about peace inside the Red Cross World 192, and the museum can be the center of this kind of development and sharing about the Red Cross history and the Red Cross activity. If you have any kind of question, please let me know. This is my small presentation about our museum. Thank you, Elena, for the introduction again.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes, it would be great if you could hear all the applauses. We are sending them to you. That was very incisive and very clear. And I treasure very much words, and Tutti Fratelli, All Brothers is a real, very meaningful combination of words. Thank you very much. Now, let's prosecute our journey. We are now moving north towards Trento, and we're going to visit the Fondazione Museo Storico del Trentino, the Trentino History Museum Foundation, whose experience will be introduced by Sara Zanatta, who is a researcher and responsible for communication projects at the foundation. Sara, I will leave you the floor.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Before I start, I'd like to give a special thanks to the promoters for inviting me to join this panel of experts today. As Elena said, I'm a researcher at Fondazione Museo Storico del Trentino. Basically, we are a private institution that focuses mainly on the history and memory of the modern geographic area that corresponds to the historic Tyrol region. We are a medusa of many faces. It's rather difficult to explain precisely what we do overall. I'm sharing with you the screen, so I can show you some pictures and pinpoint some. Okay. Can you see it? Okay. As I said, we are involved in many activities from research to educational projects. We own various collections and archives on regional history from the 19th century. We manage different exhibition spaces, such as Le Gallerie, two former road tunnels now converted into cultural spaces, Fort Cadine, which is a fort designed in the second half of the 19th century as part of the first group of permanent Austrian fortifications. But also we manage, strangely enough, a missile base from the Cold War, Base Tuono, and the Museum Caproni, the Museum of Aeronautics. We even run a thematic television channel called History Lab. So many things. But back to the point, when I first talked with Elena Montanari about this roundtable, I must admit I felt a bit like a fish out of water, because the foundation I'm here to represent, not only does it not include the word peace in its name, but also it doesn't immediately identify itself as a museum for peace. Although I'm sure, and you can see it now, we promote culture of peace anyway. So I've decided to guide you on a special trip. I will briefly underline how the political category of peace has merged with our long-lasting history and what kind of narratives of peace we either preserve in our collection and archives and perform through art, exhibitions, education, and so on. So if we consider peace as a process, we actually do have an interesting story. The museum was born after the Great War, precisely in 1923. Initially, it started to collect documents, letters, and relics of the common soldiers, seen, of course, as heroes. So at that time, it wasn't really a matter of peace, but it was actually more a pride or a celebration for victory. After the Second World War, the museum reopened with a new room dedicated to the resistance and a new name. The museum was one of the first in Italy that opened up to the memory of anti-fascism and anti-Nazism. Thanks to a woman, actually, the curator, the light and soul of the museum was Bice Rizzi, a very close friend to Cesare Battisti's wife and family. I love this picture because it allowed me to drop just a question for the discussion we'll have later on. What's the role of women within the framework of peace and in the framework of peace museums? She took a public distance from the Italian racial laws, and she had a precise idea of what she wanted the museum to be. That is a warning or a reminder, if you will, to remain faithful to the ideals of the Risorgimento period, in particular to Mazzini's vision of patriotism, the patriotic love, which can actually coexist with love, and respect for other countries. So this original political idea of peace, very subtle indeed, has then developed and keeps thriving today, both in our archives and in our activities. I will start to look at our archives. There are several archive collections specifically devoted to peace in its many shades, I would say. First of all, peace has a socialist value, at least until World War I, when the majority of local socialist politicians became interventionists instead. I will not talk about Cesare Battisti, although it is one of our largest archives. In terms of peace, the case of Augusto Avancini is more interesting. He was one of the promoters of the local workers movement, a natural mediator as a politician, and a strong believer that the pacifist forces would have contained and rapidly ended the First World War. Then we treated in our archive peace as European unity and ethnic coexistence. In the post-Second World War, we can find documents related to the ethnic coexistence, for instance, in the archive collection of Ernesta Bitanti, who is Battisti's wife, who was a journalist and writer herself, but also related to the European integration. The most interesting archival records are those of Beppino Disertori, a psychiatrist and politician, more precisely the regional secretary of the European Federalist Movement founded by Altiero Spinelli in 1943. Here we can see Disertori writing to Spinelli. Then we have an interesting point of view of peace. Peace as an individual anti-war feeling. We have the archive of popular writing, which was created in the late 80s as part of a larger methodological reflection on the subjectivity of history. And it mainly contains diaries and letters of soldiers and their families. Here, pacifism is something we can read between the lines, actually, in the writings of soldiers overwhelmed by war, as in this extract, but also in the words of their families damning the war. These diaries and letters were used in many of our educational and exhibition projects, such as in the exhibition The Last Year and in the short television format titled Interview with a Soldier. Then we have another kind of archive where peace is treated as a value, can be seen as a value for social movements. So in terms of anti-militarism, non-violence, and nuclear disarmament. The most representative archive is the Center of Documentation Mauro Rostagno. I think you all know who the man was, one of the charismatic leaders of the local 1968 student movement, killed by the mafia in Sicily in 1988 when he became an activist journalist. The center preserves from the late 80s archives of many of the student movement leaders of Italian extra-parliamentary parties and left-wing unions. Of a particular interest are the archives of the Italian League of Objectors and the Objection to Military Spending. I personally curated the exhibition Generazione 68, in which we displayed part of this collection, and we displayed the anti-militarist protests during the Vietnam War, but also the conflict among non-violent and violent positions inside the student movement. Then we have in our archive peace as dialogue that can be seen as dialogue and social justice. We own also some archives of associations and institutions created soon after the Balkan War. I just quickly mentioned the Home for Peace. The archive preserves flyers, press releases, manifestos on campaigns against mines, marches for peace, and so on. And our most recent acquisition on the peace subject is the Archive of International University of People's Institutions for Peace, that has been since 1993 and for almost 15 years, the space of education for NGO workers of human rights, peacekeeping, popular diplomacy, and sustainability. So what I'm trying to say, that the archives we own show us the complexity of human experiences and how the concept of peace is historically situated and ever changing. Each archive has been promoted with books, exhibitions, educational activities, television programs. I want only use one case study, the centenary of the Great War, in order to outline how we develop new narratives of peace. In this case, we not only commemorated the war events and the related atrocity, but we also explore alternative themes such as the opposition to the war, the after-war effects, and the cultural diversity. For instance, we organized an international conference titled J'accuse, approaching precisely the idea of opposition to war in Europe and analyzing all the political movements, intellectuals, religious associations, groups of women that intended to stop war. And we also produced a television program titled The First Year that documented 1999 as the first peace in our newly created Italian region of Trentino Alto Adige. We also co-produced the exhibition Landscapes of War, showing the pictures of destroyed buildings and villages wiped out right after the end of the war. And about the cultural diversity, we started from the very simple fact that thousands of soldiers long before 1914 came here in Trentino from all over the Austro-Hungarian Empire to learn how to go to war. Well, you can imagine that the cohabitation of foreign soldiers and local civilians was not an easy one. So we basically take this idea of cultural diversity as a problem, as an issue, and reframed it as an opportunity in the modern space of Fort Cadine. We organized and hosted, along with the Circuito dei Forti, the network of World War I Trentino fortifications, 3 contemporary art exhibitions, Babel of Languages, Parallel Stories, and Waiting for the Moment, in which international artists could play around the themes of war and peace and connect them to public affairs and new performative languages. At the same time, not only artists dealt with the idea of cultural diversity, but they were cultural mediators themselves, embodying that diversity. In general, I want to outline that Fort Cadine, which is also part of the Trial of Peace, has become the place in which we challenge the classic approach to war spaces by practicing peace. In 2018, the fort was awarded with the European Heritage Label. You can read what the European Board wrote about it. Since then, we've been working in active European citizenship, producing content for schools and teachers, hosting small groups of Euro Parliament simulations, or organizing, which is something we are doing at the moment, a traveling audio installation on the biography of fathers and mothers of Europe, spreading precisely this idea of tolerance and respect. I hope I haven't mumbled too much and that you get the idea of how issues of peace we contain and try to promote in our everyday activities. I've chosen a final quotation by American activist and teacher Helen Keller to remind that without all the collaborations we have created over the years, from Emergency to Fondazione Megalizzi, it would have been way more difficult to educate for peace based in such values as democracy, integration, social justice, and diversity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Zanatta. Thank you very much. That was very rich. I think you managed in such a short time to highlight the variety of the instruments that the institution has and uses and performs in order to prosecute these important tasks. So thank you very much. Now, let's move again. We are moving near Modena. We're moving to Carpi, where architect Andrea Luccaroni, who is professor in architecture and building engineering at the University of Bologna, will present us the experience of Fondazione Fossoli, the Fossoli Foundation, the foundation that is responsible for the management of the Fossoli Transit and Internment Camp and for the Museo Deportato Politico e Razziale nei Campi di Sterminio Nazisti. Thank you, architect. Architect, your microphone is off.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Sorry,
Thank you.
I wasn't. I temporarily lost the control of my PC, so I didn't know how to open the audio. And good morning. Thank you for inviting us. I would like to bring you the greetings and the thanks of by Marzia Lupi, the director of the Fondazione Fossoli, and also thank her. I hope she's managing to follow us. I also have to thank her for inviting me to represent the Fossoli Foundation in this occasion and in this international conference. I would like to present you in a synthetic way the foundation, the work, the activities of the Fossoli Foundation, and the places, the lieux de mémoire, which are the main focus of the activity of the Fossoli Foundation. Naturally, we're speaking about the memory of the camp, the memory of deportation and extermination camps. And you are looking now the picture. You're seeing the hall of names in the Museo Monumento al deportato politico e razziale, which is in Carpi. And Carpi is can be considered the main place, the first place where a national process of memorialization of the deportation periods began in Italy. Here in the Castello dei Pio, in the center, within the city center of Carpi, was held the first Italian national celebration. It was named really a celebration of the resistance in the extermination camps in 1955. It was probably not the very first manifestation about the experience of the camps, but for sure the one who started this process at the national level. It was held in Carpi for the first time due to the presence of the camp of Fossoli, a few kilometers away from the city center. And then it was brought city by city for the following 5-6 years in Italy, and returned to Carpi in 1961 for the celebration of the century of the Italian unification. It was chosen to hold this celebration in the Castello dei Pio in the center of Carpi, because the camp, you can see now the site of the Fossoli concentration camp. The camp in that period was occupied. It was used by the families and the people of coming from the Istrian exodus. You know, the camp of Fossoli has experimented a successive overlapping of different uses after the conclusion of the World War II, and it wasn't available at that period. This is now a very peculiar situation, not so strange, and it's common with other similar sites and transit camp, which weren't memorialized just after the Second World War, but were used for other scopes after the war, and conducted to a very curious superimposition of experiences, of memories on these sites, overlapped also to the palimpsest of the topographical the features of the plains just outside the city of Carpi. And this led to the, now we can see here the state of this picture has been taken, yes, 4 or 5 years ago. And they can show you the state of the main part of the Fossoli transit site, which is now which is now undergoing to a process of partially conservative intervention in some of the barracks. So the Fossoli Foundation is managing this peculiar network of places which are places of memories of the Italian experience of deportation. So the camp on one side who couldn't be recovered just after the war, and this is not we can consider it not a real problem, because just the first intervention after the end of the war were in many cases were characterized by the main political, we can say, thoughts and the immediate reaction just after the war. And this characterized the monuments and the process of monumentalization of some of that places, while Fossoli experimented this kind of overlapping of experience, and it is now maybe an open place for keeping the process of memory alive. And on the other side, this is Fossoli, 2 different pictures. In particular, the one on the left hand shows you also the importance of the relation between the objects and the debris which are on the first floor in the picture, and the topographical features and the landscape, which is the background of the pictures. On the other side, we have the Museo Monumento, which is an architecture intervention just after the exhibition I was talking to you about in 1961. The city decided to transform these places, which are the places of the Castello where the exhibition was held, in a permanent museum dedicated to the deportation and to the political and racial deportees in the extermination camps. There was an international competition, was won by BBPR with Albe Steiner then, and Renato Guttuso, and it's very peculiar the intervention they did here during the 70s, during the 60s and the 70s. This monument, the museum was opened the first time in 1973, and it's very interesting for me because you can see the way they decided to treat with the space, the way they decided to transform a place which has nothing to do with the deportation in a kind of container of the debris and the testimony of deportation, which are mainly objects, but in a very anti-rhetorical way, in a very essential way, using the rooms and trying to reproducing this kind of relation between objects in the first floor, objects near to the visitor, and this kind of horizon. And as you can see in the pictures on the right, the horizon is depicted on the height of the observer eye with phrases and with proposition, which has been taken by the poet Nello Risi, by the letters of the prisoners, and it has been choiced and then impressed on the wall. So there are two very different places, but quite similar in the condition. And the condition, this is the courtyard outside the museum, which is just like the last room you enter, with this stele of concrete reporting the name of the extermination camps in Europe. And I take again the discourse I was making, and I was telling there are two different places, both really important in the constitution of an Italian memory of the Holocaust and of deportation. And the Fossoli Foundation is working in keeping alive memories by, in particular, you can see this place, as I was trying to explain, work mainly on the experience of space that people can do walking in them. So memory is really strongly connected to the fact that people can be in the places where the event took place. And we can observe that both in the camp and not remains of the camp, both in the Museo Monumento, a very symbolic but anti-rhetorical way, the experience plays a really important role in the construction of a memory, which is not a still memory, but a memory in evolution. So Fossoli Foundation strongly believe that places of memory have to remain places where the process of memory is really kept open. So just to conclude with some hints on the activities of the Fondazione Fossoli, it's very important, the big work the foundation is making in education with the schools, in particular with a special desk which is inside the foundation, whose aim is to design special education tools or education projects directly with the school. And the managing of places and keeping the place in a relation, in a network. So the camp, the Museo Monumento, and also the oldest synagogue of Carpi, which is the place in which the foundation has a siege now. And last, the Centro Studi of the Fondazione Fossoli, whose aim is to work on the preservation of the archival and librarian and artistic heritage, also to collecting witnesses, testimony by deportees and people, and to put them together, working by means of memory, working to the construction of a culture of peace. I can stop here and left some other consideration for the debate.
Thank you, Architect Lucaroni. Thank you very much for introducing us into this amazing witness of memory, instruments of memory. Now, let's conclude this first round of our tour by actually moving in a sort of circle, because we're coming back to Turin. And precisely, we're going to move to the Centro Studi Sereno Regis. This is to the Sereno Regis Study Center. And I will now give the microphone to Elena Camino and Angela Dogliotti, who is Vice President of the Center. Voilà.
Ok.
Era quello giusto? Vabbè. Vabbè, sì, sì. Good afternoon. And first of all, thank you very much for inviting us. We are delighted to participate in this important conference. I'll introduce the Centro Studi Sereno Regis in Turin. That is a non-profit, independent volunteering organization founded in 1982 by two non-violent movements, MIR, a branch of International Fellow of Reconciliation, and Movimento Non Violento, the Italian branch of War Resisters International. Our mission is to spread the culture of non-violence, peace and non-violence, and the following image summarizes different areas of our commitment. Oh. Non so perché. Ah, no, pardon. No, pardon, I can. No. Voilà. This summarizes our organization. 3 pillars: research, education, and nonviolent action. 6 sectors of local, national, and international involvement: alternatives to war, peace education, people power, environment, art and nonviolence, and library. Our library is the biggest library in Italy on peace and nonviolence, with important historical archives of the social movement set up in 1999. 138 linear meters, and the documents stored cover a time frame from 1930 to the present, and represent a precious legacy to retrace the history and the thought of environmental, peace, and nonviolent movements. And since April 2014, the archives have been officially recognized as of historical interest from the authorities. With Gandhi, we think that in the midst of the hell of war, genuine sources of righteous peace persist. We ought not to despair, not let violence be seen as the master of history. So a new historical narrative able to highlight the blood saved as well as the blood shed is of fundamental importance in changing the world views in the perspective on effective peace education based on unity of means and ends, overcoming violence, respecting our common home, Mother Earth. In 2018, for the end of the First World War anniversary, we arranged an exhibition with photos and posters focused on 3 main perspectives and issues. We say no to war, we go beyond the notion of enemy, Satyagraha, the power of nonviolence to promote justice, Gaia, our shared home, from the idea of control to the awareness of interdependence. This is a photo of the exhibition in Turin at the Centro Studi Sereno Regis. And it was organized in partnership with the different movements and associations like International Peace Poster Documentation Center, the Vittorio Pallotti, who gave us different posters,
Pax Christi, Pro Natura, War Resistance International, Mundaneum, Emergency, and so on. First section, No to War. The following photos are some examples of this section. These are some women delegates in Berlin after the Women International Congress in 1915 in the La Haya. These are demonstrations in the United States, civil resistance in Europe, a big mobilization organized by campaign for nuclear disarmament inspired by Bertrand Russell. This is Dorothy Day during a demonstration against the Vietnam War in the United States. Women in Black and Women for Peace in Colombia. Second section, Satyagraha for Justice and Sustainable Peace and Nonviolent Alternatives. Pardon, non riesco a fare. So this is Abdul Ghaffar Khan, Gandhi's collaborator and the Indian leader of Pashtun in northwest of India. He organized in 1929 the first non-violent army of the history, Kudai Kudmat Galgar. And this in 1992, Gozananda led the first Dhammayatra in Cambodia. This is a picture of the Balanced Circle, Palestinian and Israeli families working for a just peace in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. And this is a meeting with PBI, Peace Brigades International, and Nonviolent Peace Corps, to protect people in danger. Ecco. Section 3.
So section 3 is my job. As in Centro Studi Sereno Regis, there is since a long time a great interest in environmental problems. It is a long time also that we are trying to interpret the world and the activities of human beings according to non-violence. So in our exhibition, trying to show various aspects of non-violence, we thought that it was interesting to look also to our approach to natural systems. So in the third part of this exhibition, there are many pictures regarding different aspects of violence and non-violence against our mother home. Here there are some examples for all the movements against nuclear tests, which is becoming more and more important just in these years and these months, as you can know. No. We have some problems to show the slides. As Angela told you, but she was very rapid in the presentation. Here we selected just some of the pictures that are part of our exhibition. So here we are showing an activity which is very famous, the efforts of human groups in India since 1970 to protect the trees at the Himalaya borders. Now I try to go on. No. Here is another very famous manifestation movement, which tried for more than 30 years to defend the villages of large parts of India against the huge dams. This is Narmada Bachao Andolan. No, wait. One more. Yeah. Another aspect of our non-violent approach to Gaia is related, for example, to the researches done in the last 30 years to understand better how animals think and how animals relate with us. Also the movement of animal defense and liberation are part of our approach to non-violence. The first exhibition was installed in 2018 and then offered to schools and municipalities or on occasion of public events. And it is still an inspiration to bring out and spread the knowledge of the hidden history of peace building in our century. Our idea is to create a museum for peace in Turin. And in the experience of these last 3 years, we have organized a lot of activities with many other NGOs and associations. And maybe if there is time and you're interested, we can then give some detail of these new ideas and projects. Thank you.
Non si vede più neanche la cosa.
Sì, non si vede giù.
No. Vedi che non lo prendi più?
Se vai più giù, così. Spegniamo.
Come si fa?
Ma perché non si sente niente?
Interrompi condivisione. Pardon.
Adesso spegniamo più.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you very much. Okay, great. Thank you for illustrating your rich work and the richness of the themes, of the focuses that you are carrying out to show the variety. We have finished the first round of our journey. So we have been moving around and we have been visiting quickly, but I think very effectively the 7 museums. Now I think it would be very, very interesting to start a debate. I would like to call it a dialogue, because I would like it to be an exchange among the protagonists, the actors that are committed to this theme. Obviously, as I was saying before, anybody can participate in this dialogue. So if there are questions from the public, from the people that are listening to us, we are very grateful to listen, your comments, your questions. You can write them in the chat. Or I'm also speaking about the panelists. If you who have presented your institution, if you would like to ask questions to other institutions and organizations, that would be perfectly fine as well. Now, I think there is a question in the chat already. The key question comes from Joyce and says, how are you thinking of passing on the museum centers to a younger generations? And the question comes from Joyce Epso. Now, I will not point any one of you. So I would like those of you who feel like saying something, or who want to contribute, to comment on this, I will let you completely free to express your point of view. So the key question that Joyce Absol writes is, how are you thinking of passing on the museum or the center to younger generations? So which are the moves that are needed, which are the tools, the strategies that are needed in order to address younger generations, to involve them within these projects? So I'm seeing Angela Dogliotti, who is would you like to say something? You have to open your microphone first. Sorry, you have to open your microphone.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Yes, we think it's very important to pass new generation this cultural heritage. We organized some courses for teachers and for students, and we had 33 class of the secondary school who came to visit the exhibition. And we worked with the tirocinanti, with the young students of the university interested in this field, who explained, who had the role of presenting the exhibition to the other students. And we think it was a good experience.
So if I can join Angela, one thing that is very interesting for us just now in this period is to continue this experience and then to involve the association who worked with us for the last 3 years, doing an activity whose named the Festival of the Nonviolence. So we collaborated for 3 years with many other associations and came to know each other. And so now we are ready to organize new things, but with many more subjects involved. And the other associations are not complementary to us. For example, emergency or pro natura. So they look at non-violence with a different approach. So now we are more strong, and we will try to go on with the exhibition, but also with other activities, which are the fruit of our strict collaboration, and so they can reach many more people, not only citizens, but many more students.
Thank you. I see a comment again by Joyce Absol West, the question. I see a comment that I think probably he answered your answer. He commented your answer, and he wrote, "Dear Angela and Elena, I think education is very important. But in fact, many centers are small, with 1 or 2 people who take the lead and have dedicated their lives to this. And how can your important work continue? I have this problem myself. And if you do not have an institutional structure and funding, it is very challenging." So I think he is addressing obviously very delicate issues. I see a raised hand.
Hi,
and
Anna,
of course I will
Yes.
leave you the microphone.
Yes, sure. Thank you very much. So I would like to share with you my experience. As you know, the Red Cross has a younger part, a youth component. Normally, we try to let them speak with younger. So one of the way is to have someone at the same level. Age will be perfect. So if we try to have some young, some people that can talk, that can explain, that can share with us at the first point what is the right way to communicate, because for some of us it's not easy to find the correct language. For example, I can speak about TikTok, for example, and I think it's not the new one because I'm 40 years old. So sometimes it's difficult to speak with the young people. But if we start from them, we can try to ask them, how can we speak to you? What do you want to find? How do you want to learn our history, for example? This is something that the Red Cross started in the last 5-6 years, when we move from the idea of word, to speak, to talk, in something more inclusive from a sensory point of view. And this is something that is changing our approach. Now the people that now want to speak about history or EHL, for international humanitarian law, need to do a training themselves to use different, not only technology, but way of communication. For example, empathy, speaking of peace, using a peace talk, so a non-violence words and something like that. So my suggestion is start from them. If you want to speak with the young people, you need young people that help you to choose the right language or way of communication. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think Dr. Pallotti would like to add something. Your microphone is closed. You have to open your microphone. In basso a sinistra. Attiva l'audio. Great, perfect. Thank you.
Io avevo preparato una risposta alle 3 domande, gruppi di domande. Parlo in italiano perché parlare in inglese in questo momento non sono molto preparato, e magari, visto che la maggior parte dei presenti è italiana, mi capisco. Ho preparato una risposta, diciamo, per gruppi di domande che avevi inviato a tutti, credo. Per cui io potrei leggere, se interessa, solo una pagina, non è una cosa lunga, una breve risposta a ciascuno di questi 3 gruppi di domande. È possibile? Si può fare o è obbligatorio l'inglese? Perché altrimenti io non mi sono preparato la risposta in inglese, ecco. Chiaro? Sentite? Mi sentite?
Yes, sorry, I have a problem with the connection. Can you hear me? Yes.
Avete capito quello che ho detto?
Yes, sì, può parlare in italiano, io cerco di tradurre per parti.
Va bene.
Traduco qualche pezzettino.
Allora, è una prima domanda. Come si posiziona la vostra esperienza rispetto all'emergere di nuove possibilità? Riassumo, offerte...
No, professor Pagliotti, quello lo facciamo dopo, passiamo dopo a quelle domande. Adesso erano riflessioni
ecco,
che vengono dal pubblico.
Ho capito.
Poi arriviamo anche a quelle domande, sì.
Ho capito, ecco, allora io mi riservo di intervenire a quel punto, ecco.
Ok, allora posso introdurre la domanda così le faccio intervenire subito. Because I also have a question for all the panelists, actually, and I will ask to Professor Pagliotti to answer first, maybe. So, one of my questions concerns the use of digital media and virtual spaces. This is to say, those innovative tools, innovative instruments that we can assume are going to assume a very important role in the fruition and in the production of cultural projects, as well as also maybe in the social relationships we develop one with the other and in the circulation of ideas. It is clear that we need more time to effectively understand how to deal with these tools, how to deal with the critical aspects, how to deal with the problems, with the limits that these digital tools may have. But on the other hand, it is already clear how many potentialities these digital tool has, in that they are really supporting us. They are really making the difference in the way we can foster international collaborations. We can dialogue with people that are very far away from us with a link. We can use them to increase the access to knowledge, to spread knowledge, to spread information, and also to reach wider and more diversified audiences. So there are potentialities, so as there are limits and problems for these tools. But I think it is necessary that we discuss about this. So I would like to know which is the opinion you have about these new media, about the digital media, and also the virtual spaces we are capable to use now. Which are your expectations? Which are your doubts? Maybe which are your experiences around this? And in particular, maybe this there is a topic that is very close to our architectural discipline, and that is also very close to some of the institutions that we have been acquainted with today, which is the possibility of digital tools to have a role not only as an alternative, but as a complement to the physical objects, to the physical tools, to the physical places that are playing an important role in the identity and in the scope of some institutions. So do you think we can envision a future in which the use and the narrative capability of the places, the objects and the places that we use in the physical museum can benefit from the use of digital tools through a collaboration between physical and virtual dimensions? Do you think there will be opportunities to support the mission of your museum thanks to the potentialities of these tools? So now this was a general thought. I will ask you first, Professor Pagliotti, to answer, and you can answer in Italian and I will translate. Okay?
D'accordo, grazie. Allora, risposta alla prima domanda, strumenti digitali. Allora, ritengo positivo lo strumento digitale per quanto riguarda le potenzialità di utilizzo dei manifesti, in particolare tramite la scannerizzazione e l'inserimento in rete di un numero sempre maggiore di manifesti, sia in formato cartaceo che digitale. Di quest'ultimo formato abbiamo iniziato la raccolta solo di recente. Continuo un'altra frase, una seconda e ultima frase, oppure puoi tradurre questa parte qui?
No, meglio spezzettare, quindi posso tradurre. Okay, so I will translate the answer of Professor Pagliotti. So overall, the evaluation he has, the consideration he has towards the use of digital media is positive. And in particular, in the experience of the center, this has been the positive effect, the positive impact, the support of these digital tools can be seen in the availability of the posters, both in the paper format and in the digital format, through an action of scannerization and dissemination of these materials online.
Seconda parte. Ritengo meno positivo e più critico invece lo strumento digitale per quanto riguarda altri aspetti della vita sociale ed economica, come ad esempio la scarsa o assente valutazione nel medio e lungo periodo dell'impatto sulla vita umana dello strumento digitale. Chiaro? Devo ripetere?
Sì, grazie. No, ho avuto difficoltà a sentirla, scusi.
giudico meno positivo lo strumento digitale, lo giudico meno positivo e più critico, e sono più critico nei suoi riguardi, per ciò che riguarda altri aspetti della vita sociale ed economica. Ad esempio, la scarsa o assente valutazione nel medio e lungo periodo dell'impatto che ha sulla vita umana questo strumento. Chiaro? Lo strumento digitale è come l'energia nucleare. L'energia nucleare all'inizio sembrava solo un fatto positivo, una cosa stupenda, no? Poteva dare energia a tutti. Poi si è visto quali conseguenze poi di fatto ha avuto, qual è stato l'impatto reale. E allora la stessa cosa credo che doveva essere fatta e deve essere fatta per quanto... Esempio l'intelligenza artificiale, la robotica. Ma quale effetto, quale impatto avrà domani sulla vita di tutti noi? Sulla pace appunto e sulla guerra soprattutto. Ecco, questo.
Molto chiaro, grazie. So, if Professor Pallotti said that if there are positive aspects, that is undoubtedly, that are undoubtedly contributing to spread the knowledge, the culture, the heritage we have. On the other hand, there are also critical aspects, which is very difficult to foresee, to envision in this moment. For example, we do not know, we cannot imagine which will be the long-term effects of the tools that we are implementing now, of the digital actions and the creation of virtual spaces that we are implementing now. There have been other moments in history where we have implemented new technologies, like the nuclear power, for example, in which we had a lot of faith because of the very positive effects these technologies had in the short term, but then in the long term we realized how many problems these technologies have created. So Professor Pallotti is wondering how can we imagine of and consider the long-term impact of the actions we are taking now through the digital technologies, or for example through the use of in artificial intelligence, which we are starting to talk about, which is starting to be integrated into the life of cultural institutions, into many aspects and layers of contemporary life, and whose consequences and whose impact we cannot completely control now.
Seconda domanda?
No, la facciamo dopo. Adesso faccio rispondere gli altri. Va bene?
Va bene, okay.
Grazie. So, is there are there other panelists that would like to intervene, that would like to say something about the questions I raised about the use of digital technologies and, for example, about how they can support some aspects, but they need also to be designed in order to be not alternatives, but complementary to other kinds of activities, other objects or spaces that are physical, that need to remain physical. Architect Luccaroni and then Sara Zanatta. Okay.
Thank you. Just also to answer to one of the questions in the chat, to the key question, how are we thinking of passing the museum to younger generation? I think it's important to reason about technology also in this for this question. You know, of course, I'm speaking on, I'm representing the Fossoli Foundation, so on the field of memory of the past, and how can we use it for promoting a culture of peace. Of course, it is very important to try every effort to be capable to speak to present, so to present generation, and try to answer to the question, how can these themes tell something interesting to the new generation, how can we speak about these themes to the new generation for matching in some way their interest? Of course, not this only a question of how to keep them involved in and transfer the memories of the facts, which always obviously really important, but also how to keep their attention and report it to a present situation, because every year the experience of this fact gets far away, and we have to make every effort to keep it near. But also we think the Fossili Foundation is a little bit we believe that it's the direct personal experience of places, cannot be entirely replaced, because you have to be in the places, because it's not only a matter of giving information. It's a matter of experimenting directly a relation with you have a different sensation, the tact and the smells, and being positioned in a topographical way amongst the debris of memories, of course. And so technology can be obviously an important instrument of to augment the reality of places, but you have to use it within the physical places. And on the other end, during these 2 years of pandemics, technologies and the possibility of have contact in distance have helped institutions like Fondazione Fossili to keep open the dialogue and with the people, and in some occasions helped also the participation. They saw increasing of the participation of public, because it's easier to get in contact from your home. But on the other hand, there is the contact is more and more on the surface, so it's more difficult than to make it to make people interiorize it more.
This could be an open challenge. So a specific part of the research on digital instruments could be dedicated to how digital and physical can dialogue and merge and match and produce new types of experiences. Maybe we are not ready to imagine this, but I think it would be interesting to understand. Thank you very much. Sara Zanatta, are you still willing to talk? Okay.
I quite agree with what Andrea just said. In general, for us, I think that the pandemic forced us to create various digital content for young learners. So I'm answering to Piera's question too. We had a real educational stuff that basically moved to the online, to the digital content from the first week of lockdown. So we developed an online education program called Storia Point Edu, made of different contents that opened up our foundation to a new public. And we also create webinars for teachers and small formats for students to help them with the maturità, but also small contents for kids using actors, for instance. I'm talking about history in general now, not only about peace content. But at the same time, what we are realizing with social networks in general, we have a Facebook page, an Instagram page, we don't have TikTok, but we are also wondering, about how much we need to be entertaining in that platforms, and how much do we have to simplify, sometimes oversimplify what we are trying to say. So when we are talking about peace, this could be really an issue, because the risk is that peace becomes merely a slogan, a square quotation, very fancy, very nice on Instagram, but how that slogan can become an active goal for the users. So that's, I think, the major risk with social networks. And that's why, as Andrea said, it's important to be in the place we built during these years.
Thank you. That's very clear. And you mentioned one of the questions that Pier and Giancarlo Caramellino left on the chat, which I'm going to read for the people that are not reading the chat. So Pier and Giancarlo Caramellino wrote that they would like to know if the museums we watched today have a kind of teaching unit online for teenagers. So I think, Sara, you have been explaining this very well. I see a raised hand, and it's Angela Dogliotti. You need to open your microphone first. Thank you.
I always forget. About the potentialities of digital tools, we are putting online the historical archives of the center, and this is an interesting possibility for remote work and contact and collaboration on a global level. This is a good opportunity, we think. And the second opportunity is a city exhibition on the key places in Turin for the history of conscientious objection that we are planning for the next year, 2022. That is 50th anniversary of the Italian law about conscientious objection to military service, and this exhibition will have digital applications that will allow citizens and tourists to assess the history of the struggle for the right of conscientious objection in Italy. So this would be a good opportunity. Probably is not, even if the difference to be in the physical place is different, but however, is an opportunity to show and to visit these documents with the Q code, possibility to read the history during the visit.
Maybe we have to distinguish among the various subjects we are dealing with. Because for students and for young people, I think it's absolutely necessary to have a direct contact. As our center is in the center of Torino, we try with various strategies to contact directly the young people, to make them also know each other, to exchange ideas directly. But for other kinds of citizens, the opportunity to have such digital opportunities, for example, going around in the city and stop and then take a conscience that they are in a place where something happened, that is an interesting opportunity. As regards the observations of Vittorio, I think that they refer to another level of problems that are the problems of our digital society, and they are not directly, we cannot deal directly with them in such a meeting. They are too high problems. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to share a thought on this theme? No, then I will read you a question that comes from Milan, because somebody is following also and is communicating through other medium. So a question, the question comes from Milan, and it refers in particular to the experiences we have been talking about in Milan and in Turin. So Angela Dogliatti and Elena Camino and Giancarlo Caramellino. So the question is, which are the difficulties and strategies to involve institutions to finally build the Gorlo and the Sereno Regis Peace museums? Professor Caramellino, if you're talking, your microphone is closed. You need to open your microphone.
Yes. I like this question, because about the strategies, I can speak a lot what we tried and what was successful, what wasn't. But about institution, it's funny because, you know, we started 30 years ago, and then the institution changes. For example, in the schools, but also in the county council and in cultural institutions. So when we were sure that we persuaded someone to help building this museum, then, you know, they changed the people. And so it takes a lot of time to build this museum. And then we found that we had to start again. But of course, peace is something that should be started every day. So we are still working on that project. And about the strategies, of course, it's quite easy to persuade, to talk to young people. It's quite more difficult to show, for example, findings that we were given, you know, photos and books and so for adults. So we were working with school children, and we were very satisfied with their results because we gave prizes and we took them also to Geneva museums, you know, ONU, United States, and everywhere. But it is quite difficult with all the people, and because they don't believe they will be, they will find a solution to their problems, you know. And so, in a way, there should be strategies according to what we really want to do. And I think the best thing to do now is to work on in schools, because schools are ready to listen to and to use new means of communication. And so this is why I addressed my presentation to university students. They're ready to understand and to go deeper in peace education, you know, to travel around and use a new means of communication. That's all.
Sure, absolutely, but they need to be guided because there is the use of the digital media and the content. So yes, only a collaboration among students from every age can bring exceptional results. Thank you very much. That was very clear. Thank you. And probably also from Centro Sereno Regis. Regis, did you want to add something? Your microphone is closed.
Voilà.
I don't understand completely what you said about the question. You were saying about the strategies with the institution. Is that? No.
We don't understand.
We don't see.
Sorry. Yes, the relationship with the institutions, the public bodies, which are the strategies that would that work better?
We are collaborating since long time with the CISP, the Center for Peace Studies of the University of Torino. And maybe now the activity will be more interesting because of a case study which has just exploded since a few weeks. The other idea, because not already done with institution, is with the Regione Piemonte. It is some years now that we are trying to organize or individuate a place within the region Piemonte to have the space to build up a great museum of peace, for peace. But the things with institutions are very, very difficult, very long time. A few decisions are made, and in this period, no financial help. So we are an old association, but we are only using the voluntary sustain. So we have many ideas. In some parts of the local institution will be interested to collaborate with us and do something all together. But as Angela can confirm, it is a quite difficult situation for taking decision at the institutional level and receiving some financial support. Without that, we do what we can.
Yes, that is very clear. And yeah, that is very clear, and I think it is a very common problem, very recurrent. I think many organizations can report this. And I was wondering whether the use of digital technologies can be maybe helping, because it maybe entails less permissions, quicker procedures, but on the other hand, digital technologies need to be designed, need to be implemented by technicians, by people that work in the field that need to be paid, and this doesn't make things easy, actually. Is there other member of the panel or people from the public that would like to address the themes we are discussing, we are debating? Okay, then I will ask you another question. I will try to tackle another aspect, because it is quite clear to me, starting drawing on what we heard today, that you organizations, you institutions are constructing peace narrations. You are working to balance positive and negative narrations. This is to say, you are most of you are balancing or trying to find new ways to narrate war and violence and to narrate peace. So to narrate the negative aspects and the positive side of the peace building process, the positive examples, the positive work that has been done that can be followed and prosecuted. So I am wondering which is your opinion about the progression of this reconstruction, revision of these narrations. And I am also asking you, according to your experience, how is the public reacting? Is the public understanding? Is the public sufficiently acquainted, sufficiently aware of this shift in the narration? Or are there difficulties, criticalities? And if so, which are the steps that, according to you, should be taken in order for disseminating this new mindset, this new perspective on war and violence and peace building? Do you, Professor Pallotti, do you want to add something?
Italian, and you translate? In italiano?
Yes. Sì, ok, sì, bene.
Allora, il processo di aggiornamento e divulgazione delle narrazioni, eccetera, è ancora troppo arretrato, a mio parere. Addirittura è ancora più arretrato di quanto lo era ai tempi della Guerra Fredda. Sembrava che durante le lotte contro gli euromissili degli anni '80 si fosse finalmente arrivati a comprendere a livello di massa la necessità di una revisione del sistema di difesa armata con relativo potenziamento di forme di difesa non armata, civile e non violenta. Ma ciò non è avvenuto e al contrario le spese militari e la soluzione armata dei conflitti hanno preso il sopravvento, a scapito ovviamente della soluzione di problemi come l'aumento a livello planetario delle disuguaglianze sociali ed economiche, della crisi climatica e ambientale e del pericolo dello scoppio di una guerra nucleare. Siamo già arrivati a un solo minuto dalla mezzanotte del famoso orologio atomico. E tutto ciò è potuto accadere grazie soprattutto alla complicità di poteri forti che governano la politica e l'economia e i relativi mezzi di comunicazione di massa. Ne sono un esempio lampante l'assenza pressoché totale nei vari media di parole e concetti sulla non violenza e su tutto ciò che ne consegue, in particolare riguardo a storia, attualità e significato del termine. Questa è la risposta alla vostra domanda.
Okay, I will try to give you a synthetic answer, a synthetic translation of what you have been saying. Basically, what you're stating is that the update, the upgrade of the narrations in regard to the themes of peace and all its counterparts is actually today more backward than it was in the past. There was a moment in the past, in history, in the moment of the Cold War, where you say, that Professor Pallotti says, it seemed the society had arrived to a critical understanding of the forms of war, of the forms of peace, and that the society was ready and the institutions and organizations were ready to change the narration about this topic and to change the behaviors, of course. Now, actually, what has happened afterwards is not exactly what we were imagining it would happen. So the outcome now is that the narration, also because of the political and economical situations that are not supporting this process. So now the result is the narration are actually not that updated as they could have been, considering the path that have been done in the past. Non so se sono riuscita a tradurre tutto. Vuole aggiungere altro?
Va bene così, casomai se c'è qualcuno che non ha, vuole approfondire questi discorsi, sono a disposizione, ecco. Ma poi aspetto la terza e ultima domanda.
Perfetto, grazie. So, I don't see any raised hand. I don't know whether anybody wants to intervene. In the meantime, Angela Dogliotti and Elena Camino had to move to another meeting and say hello and thanks to everybody who has been present here. And we thank them very much. Do you want to add anything? Is there anybody who would like to say something? Okay, if not, I have one last question for you, which could be a little easier than the ones I asked before, or maybe not, actually, and which concerns your plans for the future. So, for some of us, for some of the institutions that have been presented today, it's already clear which should be the next steps, which should be the next move, the goals, the plans that need to be implemented now. Maybe some of other institutions can focus on this a little bit more. So I will ask to those who want to answer, which are the plans, the expectations, and the next moves you're going to you have designed and you have going to implement in the future of your institution and organization. So Professor Pallotti, since you are here, do you want to intervene? Vuole rispondere alla terza domanda?
Sì. Allora, progetti e prospettive per il futuro dell'istituzione. Per il CDMP, allora, questi sono i nostri progetti. Proseguire e possibilmente potenziare quanto fatto finora e precisamente a raccogliere, conservare e valorizzare tutti i tipi di manifesti e locandine che parlano di pace e non violenza, sia nel formato cartaceo che digitale. B. Utilizzare lo strumento del manifesto per fini educativi, aiutando a mantenere la memoria storica degli eventi di pace che per lo più sono ignorati, minimizzati o addirittura mistificati dai media. Sì, continuare per quanto possibile a sostenere e divulgare le lotte non violente di singoli e gruppi disarmisti e non violenti che operano nella società. D. Continuare la collaborazione con gruppi e istituzioni che operano nei settori della documentazione, della memoria storica e dell'educazione alla pace. Ogni evento di pace, piccolo o grande che sia, per il quale è stato prodotto un manifesto, apre una riflessione su uno o più dei tanti temi su cui si può operare con gli strumenti e i metodi della non violenza. Nel 2014, così scriveva Peter van den Dungen, che penso lo conosciate perché è stato il fondatore della rete dei musei per la pace. Al termine della prefazione del libro Manifesti raccontano le molte vie per chiudere con la guerra, a cura di chi vi parla e di Francesco Pugliese, scriveva Peter: oggi più che in passato il movimento globale per la pace e il cambiamento sociale non violento deve essere potenziato. Nonostante i social media e altre innovazioni nel mondo delle comunicazioni, ecco, di cui si parlava prima, no? Digitale e quant'altro, l'umile manifesto continua a rivestire una funzione essenziale che questo libro straordinario celebra degnamente, e quindi questo bellissimo complimento che ha fatto al nostro libro, ecco, credo che si attagli perfettamente a questa serie anche di domande e di risposte che abbiamo dato. Grazie. Se devo ripetere una frase, non so che...
No, cerco di riassumere. Grazie. Okay, so Professor Pagliotti said that as to the plans and the perspectives and the projects for the future for the Centro di Documentazione del Manifesto Pacifista Internazionale will be, first of all, to prosecute the work of collection, digitalization, and dissemination of the collection of the manifestos, of the posters, so to enhance the work with the collection. Second, to continue to find innovative ways to use these posters to promote a culture of peace, and to fight the actions of those groups that are producing still today violent acts. The idea is to continue to enhance the capability of this heritage and of this organization to promote a culture of peace and to fight violence. In this way, the posters will also be able to contribute to education, to the education to a culture of peace, through various activities that the center organizes, and also through events, to public events, small or large scale that they may be. And finally, Professor Pagliotti remembers the manifesto of the International Network of Museums for Peace that Peter van Dongen, who is founder, one of the founder of the network, has promoted, has published. All these materials are available. You can browse through them online. They're easily accessible. And also they have been described and published through the books that Professor Pagliotti and that also Professor Yamane before was talking about in the chat, because there are several publications that report the key ideas around which the concept and the work of the Museums for Peace has been shaped and are being more and more focused. Thank you. Thank you very much. And is there any other panelist who would like to add something about your plans for the future? Sara Zanatta, yes? Sarah, your microphone is off.
Sorry, it was my time. No, I just want to thank you because I really saw my institution from another lens for this roundtable. And I've already talked with my colleagues in the educational department to try to wrap up an educational activity precisely on peace and on about the different meanings of peace that we contain in our archives. And I think we will be working in the next years on the World War II. We'll have 2 exhibitions, and we will have some special sections on peace as well. And what I will be really happy to do also in the next year is to focus more on social movements of 60s, 70s, and 80s, thanks to the fact that we are finally acquiring a new archive. I'm saying finally because it was a long path, and it's the Alexander Langer's archive. So, as you know, he was a member of the European Parliament for the Italian Green Party, and he coined the term eco-pacifism. So it will be very interesting to work in this too. That's another balance: sustainability, environmental issues, and peace.
So this will be some of our challenges for next years.
Great, thank you. Good luck for this project. It sounds really, really, really promising. And I don't know whether any other panelists would like to join us in this discussion.
If I may add something from Fossili Foundation, which is a more general statement, perhaps, and arguing about perspective for the future, for an institution dealing more with memory and with the past, and I guess future perspective are dealing more and more with present time. So sorry for the joke, but it's a really important matter to, as I told you before, to make this effort for reducing the distance between present times and history and the past times that Fossili Foundation is and memories which Fossili Foundation is managing. You know, building a culture of peace. It's in building a culture of peace. We think it's very important to start from everyday life, that everyone can recognize that peace starts from his own and what he makes in everyday lives, and how he deals with the neighbors and other people. So it's really important that we more and more can be able to learn from the past and learn the reason of that started conflicts that probably nobody then imagined that could raise from that condition. And so the importance of working on making the heritage, the material heritage of places and testimonies to be more and more recognizable and readable and worth reading for present generations. So I think that it's not only the perspective for the future, but probably the main mission of an institution like Fossili Foundation, but you know, conservation and letting the process to be open is the main focus.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. Is there anybody who wants to comment on this? In the meantime, Professor Kazuyo Yamane has written on the chat, and she invites you, if you are interested, obviously, to receive and to subscribe to the International Network of Museums for Peace newsletter, and for the Muse newsletter, which is the newsletter of the Japanese Citizens Network of Museums for Peace. So if you are interested in this subscription, you can go to the INMP's website, obviously, or you can write to the address that Professor Yamane has written on the chat, which is inmpoffice@gmail.com. Which is a very brilliant way to remain always updated and to keep on dialoguing with what is happening all around us in various distances. Is there anybody else who would like to add something? Probably no. If somebody is talking, okay, you have the microphone, your microphone is off. You need to open your microphone, sorry.
Ecco, posso parlare? Sentite? Sì. Allora, volevo dire che la relazione che ho fatto prima sui 40 anni di vita del nostro centro è una relazione molto ridotta, no? Perché ovviamente ragioni di tempo, ecco, avevo giustamente un limite di tempo, ma se qualcuno la volesse anche appunto sia in italiano che in inglese, la posso mandare volentieri, ecco, quindi se basta che mi scriva, mi manda una mail e io sono ben felice di mandargli questo documento, assieme anche alle risposte, diciamo, alle domande che prima avevo fatto. Ecco. Tutto qui, grazie.
Grazie, so I will translate.
Ecco, ecco, volevo fare un saluto particolare a Casuio, oltre che ad Angela naturalmente e a Piera. A Casuio perché la ricordo molto bene, nel 2002 ci siamo incontrati per la prima volta a Lucerna alla celebrazione dei primi 100 anni del Museo per la Pace di Lucerna. Do you remember Casuio in Lucerne in 2002 or 2001? And do you remember? We meet us in that occasion. John, hey, many greetings to you. Thank you.
So I will quickly translate. Professor Pagliotti said that whoever may be interested in knowing more about the organization or to receive information also about the talks, the speech he gave today, you can write to him. I will digit the email on the chat, but it's very easy to reach the website of the center, and you can write to him and he will be completely available to answer to your questions or prosecute the dialogue. So if there are no more interventions or comments on this, I will very quickly share a couple of conclusive remarks so that we can finish the journey we have been going through, a very rich journey, I think. So I think one of the aspects that very much impressed me is the heterogeneity, the variety of this scenario that you have been depicting. This is to say the institutions, the organizations that we had the possibility to get acquainted with today vary in their type, in their origin, in the path they went through, in their scope, in their mission, in their collections, in the place, in their tools. And this variety makes me reflect, wonder, question myself about the definition of museums for peace. Now, the International Network of Museums for Peace has provided one definition. And the definition they gave is that museums for peace are the non-profit institutions that are involved in peace education through exhibitions, documentation, and other related activities, and that promote a culture of peace through interpreting, collecting, and displaying peace-related material, historical figures, and events. Basically, the Museum of Peace are those organizations that inform and educate the citizens about peace, and that provide citizens a guidance on how to build, on how to preserve, and how to promote peace, by highlighting the lessons from the past that we can learn from, but also by spreading knowledge, by teaching proactive behaviors and attitudes. Well, it seems to me that this definition can be applied to many different institutions. For example, we can simply consider the variety of the museums and the centers that we have been talking about today. So these institutions include associations, organizations, research centers, but also historical museums, memorial museums, and we can continue to talk about how some city museums, some ethnographic museums, or art museums are engaged in carrying out these tasks that participate in the peace building process. So these institutions have their own collections, they have their own statute, they have their own specific mission and scope, but at the same time, they can operate as museums for peace, in parallel to those peace museums that were specifically born for this purpose. So it seems to me that the theme of peace, in some cases, can become a paradigm that many different institutions and organizations can assume, can embed into their programs and into their mission. Despite the diversity of the experiences that were presented here, I think we can say that there were recurrent keywords, recurrent concepts in the talkings we shared today. So first of all, I would think about these new historical narratives that we have been talking about. This is to say, the commitment in continuing to update the narrations about peace and about war, and the search for new ways to embrace peace and war in a complementary manner, and to rethink as we were saying before, the balance between the negative and the positive narrations. But this issue, these new historical narratives and the revision of the narratives, I think, as been said today, it also stands for the necessity to control, to verify, and to correct some of the misused versions, the misunderstood or instrumentalized versions of history and memory that still are circulating, and that we have the responsibility to correct. Now, the second point, obviously, is that of the new communication. The new communication means the new communication strategies that embrace the digital ones, but not only, because there are a lot of ways in which we can engage, for example, with new languages or new experiences, by changing the position, for example, of the educator and the narrator, as in the peer education projects that Angela Dodet was talking about before. So it simply is clear now that we need to consider the changes in the communication modalities, in the communication dynamics, and it is necessary to integrate new ideas and new projects in these tasks. And this is especially crucial in engaging with different targets. So we have been talking about younger generations, but not only, because as Piera Caramellino was saying, it's not always the youngers that are the most difficult people to talk with. There are a lot of challenges, and of course, as it is normal and as it is necessary in each role, as we do, for example, in the university, whenever you change the target, you need to change your communication means. You need to change your perspective, your language, and if you want to be relevant enough, you need to project, to design a communication that is suitable and relevant. Of course, I think that the digital means need to have a role in this process, although they are not the answer. They are one of the possible answers that can help us to achieve some of the tasks that are so urgent now. For example, I think they are really strategical in enhancing and boosting cooperation. That is a key condition for the successful development of peace-building processes. A cooperation that needs to work at different scales, a cooperation that needs to be interdisciplinary, because as we have been highlighting today, we need to embed into this dialogue a lot of different actors. So the richness of the different points of view, of the different expertises of these different instruments that different actors can bring to the collaboration, I think is a very important aspect that can make cooperation possible. So we have now a lot of opportunities, and digital instruments are giving you support in joining efforts, in meeting, even in different times and spaces, in dialoguing, in affording common challenges. But we can this can happen, cooperation can really happen only if we, first of all, define a common horizon, a common vision, and we define shared tasks, common tasks. So we need a project. We need to program to define shared tasks and horizons. And this is also crucial for education, obviously, which is an effort that is at the basis of the challenges we have been talking about today. And So Museums for Peace have a key role in promoting innovation in education, and innovation refers both to the use of new media, the use of new languages, of new tools, but also in the tackling of new themes. And I think today we have been starting to talk about this. It's becoming very, very clear to me how the contemporary Museums for Peace are not only committed to show violence, the horror of war, or injustices or inequalities, but rather they are also focusing on the teaching of the conditions of the positive behaviors, on the proactive behaviors that are necessary to construct and to conserve peace. And this task can be carried out, for example, by promoting mutual understanding among people with a different cultural background. We have been talking about this today. So by educating people about difference, about diversity, about the differences and similarities and possible links between cultures of different countries, near and far, or about the complexity of contemporary identities, about the value of diversity, or about the fact that diversity has been part of our history and part of what we are today. Again, from this perspective, many museums are potentially museums for peace, including those that already acknowledge this mission, but also those that are getting there. And I'm talking about the fact that we are living in a historical moment that is characterized by huge challenges and by huge changes, very significant, that are affecting society and our lives in several different ways. So the rise of social and environmental emergencies, the political and economic crisis, the accelerated migration flows, and the reconfiguration of communities and cultural identities, but also the same quick update of communication modalities that is reconfiguring the behaviors, the personal relationships we have with the other, the distance among the people. So all these changes are obviously challenging the role of museums and cultural institutions that actually in the last decade, the last 20 years, they have started to really critically rethink of their role in this new world that has changed, that is changing so much. So many museums have been now already in the last 20 years started very important renovation processes that are reconfiguring, redesigning the programs, the tools, the relationships they have with the collection, with the communities, with the narrations, and implementing new participation practices, new interactions with the people. So it seems to me we are living in a moment that is one of those epochal changes, one of those moments in history where a lot of different changes are combined together to produce epochal changes. So if we are really living in this transitional moment, why don't we exploit this opportunity? Why don't we exploit this transitional moment that is fertile for changes to spread awareness about the culture of peace and to integrate it into the mission of different institutions, of different organizations, and different stages of society. I think it's definitely time to value the work that has been done by the museums that have already a huge commitment in peace, but I think it's also time to enhance this work in many other actors that can participate. It's time to join forces, and it's time to take action together. Together is one of the keyword that have been recurrent keyword. So we very much hope that this conference may have a little bit contributed to this task, to take action, to move something, to circulate something. And we thank very much all the participants, all those participants who taught, all those participants who listened, and we hope we have been providing you some food for thoughts that will help to take action. So thank you again. You have been all very, very, very generous, very, very supportive, and you made this event possible. So thank you so much. I think we can This is for you.
Thank you very, very much. No. Excellent, excellent.
You are doing an excellent work. So thank you for sharing, because sharing now is like an engine that keeps things moving. So thank you very much. Professor Yamane, you opened your microphone. Do you want to say something?
I just wanted to say thank you so much for everything and translating Italian to English.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I just say goodbye by saying see you soon. Okay. And I hope we will see you tomorrow in the second day of the conference, which will take place partially in Milan, but it will also be possible to follow it online. And you can find in the chat the link to participate both through Zoom platform or YouTube. Thank you very much. Take action.
Brava.
Grazie Elena.